questions? Correction. Which is fine. I can handle you folks. Any questions of my own? Hey, before we get started here, it's another one of my favorite stories. Some of you have perhaps heard this, but there's always someone who hasn't. It is the story of a bagpiper. Story of a bagpiper. As a bagpiper, I play many gigs. Recently, I was asked by a funeral director to play the graveside service for a homeless man. He had no family, no friends, so the service was to be at a pauper cemetery in the backwoods. I was not familiar with the territory. I got lost. I finally arrived an hour late and saw the funeral guy had evidently gone. The hearse was nowhere in sight. There were only the diggers and the crew left, and they were eating their lunch. I felt badly and apologized to the men for being late. I went to the side of the grave and looked down, and the vault lid was already in place. I didn't know what to do, so I started to play. The workers put down their lunches and began to gather around. I played out my heart and soul for this man with no family or friends. I played like I'd never played before for this homeless man. And as I played Amazing Grace, the workers began to weep. They wept, I wept, we all wept together. When I finished, I packed up my bagpipes and started for the car. Though my head hung low, my heart was full. As I opened the door to my car, I heard one of the workers say, "I've never seen nothing like that before, and I've been putting in septic tanks for 20 years. There is always the possibility of delivering a wonderful message to the wrong audience. Let's hope that none of our candidates do that tonight. 3 of the 5 candidates, as I understand it, in the race for State Senate District 24. We will begin with opening statements. We'll start with Peter Gibbons. I'm here, Peter Gibbons.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Pete Gibbons. I've been the mayor of Bowman just up the road here for the last few years. I've served a term as a city councilman before that. So I've known what it takes to fight for our rural communities. I've been fighting for one just like Oglethorpe County for the last several years. And I feel I'm uniquely qualified to fight for y'all from day one. I am endorsed by the Georgia Right to Life for my commitment to fighting for life and our Christian values. I had the highest grade possible from the NRA for not being a member, for my commitment to fighting for our Second Amendment rights. Going around to Oglethorpe, we've had several events here. I love coming here because I see the passion in everyone here. We've had the biggest crowds in our events here in Oglethorpe County of anywhere we've been through the 8 counties that we cover, and that's a testament to how much y'all care about your community. And that feeds my passion. I never planned on getting into government, but we had a need in our community, and there was an opening, so my neighbors twisted my arm and asked me to run, and I ran. And then I ran for mayor, and I grew a passion for helping the community. I feel we all have a duty to do what we can to make sure we leave our community a better place for our children. And seeing your passion for coming out today, it just fuels me even more that I'm ready to fight for y'all, and I'm ready to be that voice. Our rural communities get left out a lot in Atlanta. And being a mayor of a rural community and being just down the road here, I know what y'all are facing, and I'm ready to make sure y'all have a voice again in Atlanta. Because if elected, it's not my voice going to Atlanta, it's y'all's voice. And I'm here to listen. I've been here to listen, and I'm ready to carry that voice to Atlanta for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Goodwin.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me back? Okay. Well, I'm Pat Goodwin, and I'm running for the state senate, and I'm a conservative Republican. And I believe that the voters of the 24th district deserve some clear, distinct choices. And it's good because you have so many choices in this race. So kudos to y'all. As a conservative, and I'm sorry, I'm going to read a little bit of my notes so I don't forget everything I want to say. As a real conservative, I do bring over 40 years of working experience to the table. And that includes leadership and management roles where I retired from Southern Company Services after 29 years in the Medical College of Georgia for 13 years. And during the last 3 years, I've been attending school, and last 3 years I've been working in real estate, and for the last 3 months I've been attending school to obtain a license in real estate. So you're never too old to learn. hard work ethics to serve you. Because I know that government does not create jobs. It is the role of small businesses and companies such as each of you may have that will help make this community stronger and more prosperous. I believe we need less federal government regulations and requirements. I do support the fair tax, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I can go to Atlanta and make that happen, because it's not going to happen overnight. I support the First and Second Amendment. I believe in pro-life, and I believe school decisions need to be returned to the state and local government. And on my last note, I will tell you that I served as the chair of Columbia County CPB for 2 terms, Columbia County Chamber of Commerce for over 15 years, where people think I'm actually an employee there. I've been on the Government Affairs Committee. I've held numerous committee chair roles, including small business development. And recently, we've just created, well, not recently, but in 2010, we developed a leadership adult class there, which I know Oglethorpe is also doing. So I've learned a lot from leadership and working with our government officials. I've served as the chair of the Ron McDonald House in Augusta. And I do all of this to give back. I don't do it to add anything to my resume, and I do what I can. So I'm not asking for your vote or title. I don't require that. I just truly work hard in the communities because I care, and I'll do the same thing for you.
Thank you. And Greg Rudowski.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Rudowski. I'm going to stand up here so you can see a little better. I'm a father. I have 4 girls. I'm 16 years old to 9 years old. And they keep me pretty busy, my wife Joanna. I'm a soldier. Yes, I'm retired. But those of you who are veterans, sailors, or airmen or soldiers know you're always a soldier. So it's a state of mind. And I'd like to take my minute and a half to kind of talk about that state of mind. I normally wouldn't run for office. I've spent 23 years, my entire adult life, serving in the military. I'm a second lieutenant to a lieutenant colonel. I was a military intelligence officer, and then I was what's called an acquisition officer. I spent about 12 years working with the Pentagon, the highest levels, working on programs and bureaucracy, politics, the ugly side of what goes on in the military and in our government. So I fought those battles many times. But really why I'm here is because I don't see any action. I don't see anything changing. I've been voting in all these elections too, just like you guys have. We need someone to go into office who's going to start forcing some action. And this came up on Facebook. Some of you may have seen it. Okay? You have 3 choices when you're working a problem. You have 3 kinds of people. You have people who want to help you solve a problem. You have people who want to talk about solving the problem. And you have a bunch of people who don't want to do anything. Let me tell you, our federal government's full of that. It really is. And in my jobs, I've had to deal with how do you build a team amongst those 3 people, those 3 kinds of people. And that's what you do. You find the people who want to get something done. So if you're elected to the legislature, you find those legislators who want to do something different, who want to take that $58 billion debt that we have in Georgia right now, and all of you owe $5,600 out of your pocket for, and reduce it. Not spend more, not borrow more. We already owe $54,000 out of our pocket to the federal government for the $19 trillion debt we have. That's why I'm here. I've got 4 girls that do not have the future that I had when I was their age. They are not going to have the options if we don't start doing something now. My generation. And we say in the military, AWOL, absent without leave. I really feel my generation is AWOL. And that's why I'm here. Most people don't want to do these jobs. They're not easy. Everybody said these are not easy jobs. So that's why I'm here. And what I want to stress to you is I'm going to go up there and I'm going to find the folks who really want to do some action, make some change. There's a lot of new people running for office. Things are going to change in this country, I think for the better. Because we're going to start putting new people at all levels of the government. I'm just one of many other people who hopefully you guys will elect to office to start changing things. They will take time. I hope you'll think about voting for me, Greg Rudowski, to start doing some of those changes. Thank you.
First question is directed directly to Pete Gibbons. We'll give the other folks a chance to respond and find your answer to 1 minute. Pete Gibbons, Mayor Gibbons, do you consider yourself to be the anti-Columbia County candidate?
Well, I guess by default I am. I'm the only person in this race not from the Columbia County area. You know, nothing against them. I've met some great people in this race, but being from outside the area gives me a different perspective. And being from an area just up the road here, you know, fighting for some of the same issues here as Oglethorpe, you know, I understand agriculture, how big of a business it is here in our area. We've been helping our poultry farms near Bowman, you know, with every way we can, running infrastructure to them. And, you know, agriculture is the #1 business in Georgia. It's the #1 business here in Oglethorpe County. And Obviously, as you can tell, I'm not a farmer, but I know there's a lot of great farmers in this community. And I have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so I'm twice as good at listening as I am talking. So I'm ready to focus on what y'all have to say. Plus, Tom McCall, who is the king of the land of agriculture. I mean, he's been a mentor since I was a little pup here in government and kind of helped raise me and teach me what I know. So he's someone I'll definitely call on when agriculture comes up, because we need to make sure we protect our farmers right here in Oglethorpe County and throughout the state.
Obviously, neither of you, the two of you, are anti-Columbia County, or if you are, that would make for an interesting answer. So go ahead and deal with this one. This speaks to Oglethorpe County specifically. We, they say, have had little representation in Atlanta since redistricting. How can we be assured you will be concerned with the needs of Oglethorpe County if elected? Now, that's some of you.
I think it's pretty easy. My experience, I was going to sort of answer the previous questions, I think I can. People in Columbia County say, I'm not from Columbia County because I'm sold. Okay, so I really believe in America. It's not a cliche. I don't think about Columbia County and Oglethorpe. I don't think that. I've spent my entire life being with every kind of American for 23 years. And personally, I'm tired of dividing ourselves up. I guarantee you, if I'm elected, I will be up in every one of these counties all the time. Okay, quite honestly, I'm going to have to quit my job for this position if I'm elected. That's the reality of my situation, to do the job right. And I talked to my wife about it, and we're willing to do that. That's a 50 to 60% pay cut. We don't know what we're going to do about that. But what matters to me is we're not going to change this country if we don't start sacrificing it. That's the reality. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You guys are very important to me. I defended you for 23 years. You guys defended me for 23 years. We're Americans. Guarantee you, as I grew up in the country, I've grown up in the city, I've been employed, I've been all over the place. What matters to me is that we are free people and that we are going to fight together to keep that freedom. Guarantee you I'll be defending you in Atlanta. 100% of it.
Well, I've said all along that if I'm elected, that I will host routine meetings with the county leadership and the voters. I mean, you want to meet with the leadership to understand what their needs are, but I want to hear from the voters because that way I want you to be candid with me. I want you to open it up and share with me because I can't fight for you if you don't tell me what it is that you really need. And I know when Senator Whitehead served, he did a Wednesdays with Whitehead, and I said I would do the same thing. I would follow along the same patterns, listening to you first, because I certainly won't know all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend I do.
Let's start with some current events here. Recently, the governor vetoing, for example, a week ago, the campus carry bill. Pete Gibbons, let's start with you. Agree, disagree with the veto? Would you be supportive of the campus carry legislation next year?
Well, sure. And this is a topic that's definitely very hot at the moment. And as I look at our Constitution and as I look at the Second Amendment, I don't see anywhere where there's an asterisk anywhere near it. And there's nowhere that says, well, we have the right to bear arms, but then a little asterisk that says, well, only in certain places or only here and only there. Our Constitution specifically gives us the right to bear arms, and I'm sure this legislation will come back in some form next year, and I'm in favor of protecting. As I said, the NRA gave me the highest rate possible for someone that is not a member of the organization, because they feel that I will fight for our gun rights, and that's what I intend to do.
I would support it, and it's interesting to me that I was watching the newspapers, and I don't know locally what UGA did, but on the Augusta Chronicle, there was a full-page ad for the institutions, the administrators, and the leaders totally opposed that. So I'm sure they had their reasons for doing that, but I purposely, if given to me, with it being tweaked, I would definitely support it.
Mr. Price, I've obviously been around guns all my life, and I believe 100% of the second. So I'm for that bill. But what concerns me more than that is this trend we're having in our country. And it's been done before this year, where everybody talks about safety. We have to be safe. We have to be safe. We will give up all of our freedom for safety if we're not careful. That frankly warned us of that many years ago. So this is a perfect case of that. Right? So it's a public institution. You have every right in a public place to carry your weapon, if you're not a felon. But now we're making conditions on it. We're making conditions on everything these days. And every time we make a condition on our freedom, we lose our freedom. We're going to have to take some risk to be free. There's going to be somebody on one of these campuses, if we're going to do this, who's going to do something bad. It'll happen. There's 330 million people in this country. Are we going to live in fear of every single thing that possibly could happen in our lives? We've all had trauma in our lives before. You can't live like that. I don't want to live like that. I would definitely support the bill, and I would definitely support a lot of other bills that puts the onus back on us to defend ourselves and to protect our own freedom ourselves, and not have any government protecting us all the time. Because I want to be free.
Similar to a few weeks ago, the religious liberty legislation had a similar question. It's likely to come up again in some form or fashion in 2017. If you are Senator Grabowski, where will you be on that?
They made a huge mistake with that bill because they put too much into the bill. The original intent was the Pastor Protection Act. I'm a firm believer that any private institution, especially faith-based institutions, should be able to practice their faith without any intervention, like any government institution or any private institution. Should not be able to influence what they do there, so long as they're not breaking any constitutional laws, right? So I was very much for that. The problem they ran into with that bill is they had other features and that crossed into the existing law about hiring certain types of people and conducting commercial business. That's a different issue, because that gets into discrimination, potentially, discrimination law. And so I think it was a mistake. They bundled it all together. I call it an omnibus religious bill. It was a big mistake. I think if they go back and need to focus in on protecting the church, which was the original intent. If they want to address these other issues, we address them separately. That's a big problem we have with Congress, omnibus. Put everything in. You can't possibly make a good decision on a particular issue. So I would focus on pastor protection next time around and write the bill that way to protect religious activities inside the church, and those other issues would be separate bills.
We'll get to the other two candidates, but I want to just follow up on that very briefly. If I understood you correctly, okay, pastor protection, yes. Would that not be carving out a special protection for a pastor that I don't have? If you carve out that we're going to protect the pastor's right to practice and observe religious faith as he or she sees fit, you're going to extend to them a protection that I would not have as a person in virtually any other walk of life.
No, it's a protection for the institution. Pastor protection has a nickname for protecting that church. Okay, so if I'm in Westminster Baptist Church, then that church has legal protection of conducting its faith the way it wants to, and not be forced to conduct a homosexual marriage if they don't want to. That's the issue. Let's just be honest about it, okay? Now, that shouldn't extend out of the church to, I'm not going to hire a homosexual person if I'm conducting a commercial business as a church. Because now you're violating that person's constitutional rights. That's a different issue. They bundled the two together. And that was wrong.
Let's get the other candidates. In fact,
Well, my answer is going to be boring, because I think so many great votes on that one. I believe it will be passed next year, and I think they can change the wording and get rid of the confusion, and I believe it will pass.
and you'll be supportive of it.
And I will be supportive of it.
All right, very good.
Sure. Yes, I will be supportive of it coming back. And, you know, this country is founded on our religious freedoms. I mean, that's why a lot of our ancestors came here in the first place, so they could practice their Christian beliefs the way they saw fit. I mean, our churches need to be protected, you know, to be able to work and to live on their beliefs. And there's also the issue where, you know, here's government just getting into everyone's everyday lives. If you have a private business, you know, I see people in here that have their own businesses. You know, if you built a business, if that's something you created with your hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, who is the government to tell you who you can and can't serve? I mean, if you have a private business, you should be allowed to, you know, run it your own possible way, you know, your own way you would like to as well. So, you know, we definitely need to revisit it and make sure that our private businesses, you know, have the ability to run as they see fit. You know, our churches also need to make sure that they have the ability to run as their faith.
I want to make sure that I understand the distinction. I believe you did. You just draw a distinction with Mr. Grabowski's position. Don't let me mistake your position, but you were speaking specifically about churches, institutions of faith. And you specifically heard directly that business, private sector out of your answer. Is that right?
Well, no, they should be in the private businesses. You should have the ability to serve whoever you want.
That's what I said. That's your position. But your position was different.
So my position is based on the law. You can't hire somebody. You have that bill apply. Right? So but if the person, you can't fire them because they're black. You can't fire them because they're a woman. And you can't fire them because of their sexual orientation. Okay, that's a law. So if you want to write a law and go to the Supreme Court, I personally happen to agree with it. okay? Because if some other group decides that whatever I'm doing in my life, my private life, is offensive to them, and they're going to now attack my ability to make a living, that's not American. I got an issue with that. I've been spending 20 years in the military defending that kind of thing. So if that's a distinction, then I guess that's...
Well, and let me just add, if you have a private business, you should be able to run it however you see fit. But if you're mistreating someone, the consumer has their own rights to boycott and refuse.
So I should be allowed then to put in my restaurant a sign on my door that says no blacks allowed?
No. That's already part of the law, and I know it is a touchy issue.
Can I put a sign that says no gays allowed?
As a private business, you should be able to do what you want, but you know what, you have to reap the consequences of what you do. And, I don't believe we should discriminate against anybody personally. I just don't think it's the government's right to be meddling and tell you. I think the consumer, if someone took that stance out here, one of the businesses out here, we're going to not serve some folks, I think the community itself will stand up and say, well, we're not going to go to that business and support. So I'm not saying discrimination is good. I'm saying it's not the government's job to get in and run everyone's daily lives.
Pat, I don't want you to get on this. What do you think of the answers you've heard so far?
Well, I think they're a little confusing, but I know for me personally, I would abide by the federal law. And there's so many classes in that federal law that I think everyone's covered, honestly.
Let's move on. Last year, I guess it was last year, 2015, the legislature passed, the governor signed up, some would call the largest tax increase in Georgia history, certainly the largest tax increase since Republicans took over the transportation tax, the reconfiguration of the motor fuel tax and the rest of it. Where would each of you have been on that? Let's start with you, Pete Gibbons.
Obviously, transportation is a huge need here in the state. There's some parts of that bill that I don't see I could have voted for. The $5 a night tax on hotels, that's hurt a lot of areas. That's a steep tax to levy on one room per night. So, I understand there's some tough choices, and especially with the Savannah Port expansion coming down the road, we're going to have a lot of tough choices with transportation this way. And we've got some opportunities for some economic development even here in this area. But we need to make sure we're connected to I-20 and make sure 78 here is expanded out so we can be a hub. And when that port expansion is done, we can tie into that. But that was a very big tax increase, and sometimes we have to make the tough choices, but there's a lot in there that was very hard to swallow, especially when we're handing out money for football stadiums and baseball stadiums. But the money seemed to be there for that. But here we are when we have a serious need in transportation, and we're asking for y'all to cough up more money. I don't see logic.
Thank you. How do we pay for roads and bridges?
Well, that's a large subject, and one everybody likes to talk about. I know in Columbia County, we can just pass and approve the TIA. So we had passed one tax, approved that tax. We were already about the T-Splosh, and then this came along. And the voters were mad as all get out because some of our representatives decided not to vote for that tax. Yet the truth of the matter is, they're all receiving a lot of benefits from that tax. And there's been so many road improvements projects that is taking place right now because of that tax. And let's face it, you can't grow your communities without good highways and transportation. You can't. It's part of economic development. So what I would say, if it falls back on me as a senator, I would want to talk first of all to my legislators who I hope are talking to their people, and I would vote according as they so guide me to.
Mr. Massey.
It's actually a bigger question, I think, than that. We have a big gut check in the state of what we're going to do with our tax money. We are way behind in a lot of areas. We're not the only state. We're not the only ones to fall. We have a $58 billion debt. We need to start paying that debt down. The Constitution specifically told Congress is one of the primary acts which they fail to do is pay the debt before you spend a bunch of money. That's actually in the Constitution, to pay off the public debt. So we're not doing it. That's priority number one. Priority number two is infrastructure. All right, so are we willing to pay for more taxes because we don't have enough money? We are rated a C right now by the the American Society of Civil Engineers out of an A to F rating in the nation. The nation's got a D minus. Okay, there's some better than us. We're middle of the road. You know what one of our better ratings are? B, roads. It makes you wonder how bad some of the roads are in other parts of the country. But the worst areas we have are our dams. We have over 6,000 dams across the state. You know how many inspectors we have for those dams? 4. 4 people in the state of Georgia that inspect 6,000 dams. If they find a fault with the dam, it takes 90 days to assess it. How are we ever going to keep up with that? There's serious risk to life and property damage because of those dams. And there's 13 other categories that they've assessed in the state of Georgia. My question is, I'm sure folks have looked at it, what's our priority? How are we going to fix this? What are we focused on? It's a decision of, do we raise taxes or do we bring in more economic capability, right? Some people don't want that. I grew up in the country. A lot of people don't want to turn into Columbia County with roads all over the place and houses all over the place and 40-minute commutes everywhere. Some people don't want that, but they want to have the benefits that money generates. Some tough decisions have to be made, and this Senate district is a perfect example of that. You have Columbia County and you have rural counties. It's a microcosm of what's going on in Georgia. And I believe what we have to do is we have to kickstart some of the rural counties, and then they got to get on their own feet. They're going to have to make some tough decisions about it. We've got to grow some revenue. That's a tough decision. That's up to you guys. That's up to what you want to do. So, Walt, to answer your question quickly, it's a question of how much economic development do we want in the state, casino and all the stuff we're hearing about, or how much do we want to pay out of our own pocket to pay for taking our C rating to at least a B. And we got to pay off $8 billion. It's not the best situation.
In November, you're going to get a chance to vote on the referendum, the Opportunity School District proposal, allow the state to take over so-called failing schools. Yes or no on that, and a brief explanation. Sorry.
I don't agree with it. I think it's overhandedness by the state government as much as I would want the federal government to raise my kids. I believe in empowering the counties to run their schools, to run the commissions to run their property. I don't think the state should be doing that. I understand there's extreme cases where some schools need to be bailed out in some way. There is the case of inner city schools that have a challenge. That might be an isolated case, but I am not for a carte blanche approach where the governor can come in anywhere and take over the county schools and take control.
I agree with Greg on that one. I'm not in favor of it. I do believe that the controls need to be managed locally. I have seen in our area, well, not in our county, but in our neighboring county, where they've had 2 schools that has been on the failing list. And those 2 schools have really raised their rates up, their studies up, and so 2 of them are now coming off because they have a certain time frame to get that done. So I'm glad to see that. You know, there's other things that we can be doing with our school systems, and I'm a huge proponent of, I'm going off into another subject other than that, but I'm a proponent of dedicated technical.
I'll rein you in.
Okay. Yeah, I've been rained in before. So, but I'm a strong proponent of dedicated technical high schools. You know, in education, one size does not fit all. And I'm not sure where we're going with all this. We have a lot of issues in education. A lot of issues.
Mr. Gibbons, Opportunity School District.
Sure. I'm against it for the same reason I'm against Common Core. I think we need to keep our education local. No kid learns the same way. We can have 2 kids that are just as bright, but they're going to learn in different ways. So our teachers need to be creative enough, need the creativity to reach every child, just like our counties. Not every school district is the same. So each county needs to have the ability to run and operate in the best way for that county, for the best way for the schools, and the best way for the children. I don't see the need to add another level of government oversight to affect our local areas anymore. As far as I'm concerned, Governor Deal has already removed some school board members, and I believe it was in DeKalb County a few years ago. I mean, he's already has that power to remove school board members, if the schools are in trouble, if there's issues in there. So I don't see why we need to add any more laws to take over. I think we need to keep our schools local. We need to make sure we get rid of Common Core, make sure our teachers are creative enough to reach every kid possible. Because everything we want to do with economic growth and development is meaningless if we don't have an educated workforce. If we don't have graduation rates up, if we don't have kids here that have the knowledge, whether it's through technical schools like Dad's been preaching, or through college education. We need to make sure we have an educated workforce, and we need to make sure that our teachers have the creativity to be able to reach our children.
Last question, and then we'll get to closing statements. But take a couple of minutes each other here and talk about tax reform. If there's a need for it, if so, what form reform would take?
Sure. I am in favor of fair tax. I think that's something we definitely need to work towards going forward. Obviously, as Pat said, it's not going to happen overnight, but we have heard it talked about more and more. So that does excite me that we are getting closer to removing our state income tax and going towards a fair tax. One issue, a lot of our areas being along the border here, we also have to keep in mind, South Carolina already has lower taxes than us, so we're already losing a lot of business over the border. So we need to make sure that we don't crush our neighboring communities that are on the borders, to Carolina or other states when we put the fair tax in place. But it's something we definitely need to work towards to make sure we can, find a way to implement it properly.
Back good with tax reform.
Tax reform, another big issue, and as I said, it's going to take several years before we see that actually happen. Last year, there was a House bill brought forward, and it was Georgia's take home more pay. And that was that they were going to try to reduce the state income tax from 6% to 3%, so you could actually take more pay home. Now, when that happens, something else has to give. When you take from one pot of money, you can be assured you're going to have to take that money from somewhere. It's got to come up with it somewhere else. So I know that it's going to be a long effort, but I definitely believe this is something we need to do. And in doing so, I hope we can continue to put back money in our Georgia reserves, because I understand over the last session we have built some of that reserve back up, and we do need to continue to do that.
And this will prevent some tax reform.
We have to find a way to reduce the amount of taxes people pay. We're on a glide path right now to 100% taxation in our banking income. That's the path we're on, if you look at the statistics. It's happened all through history and other civilizations. We have to find a way. We can't keep paying the taxes we're paying. The federal government, just as an example, as a statistic, has gone from 65% of the federal budget to almost 75% of the federal budget towards entitlement spending. No growth at all. So when that 10% got eaten up for entitlement spending, it was taken out of the military. It was taken out of the Department of State. It was taken out of the Department of the Interior. We're fielding brigades right now. Supposed to be getting 5,000 radios, we're getting 2,000 radios. So they say make it work. But it doesn't work. You can't fight a battle. It's the same situation at the state level. We have got to find a way to be more efficient. And that goes to what I said earlier about going into the legislature and working these problems, are complicated problems. There's some tough choices. What do we do? I don't have all those answers yet, because it's going to take a team of folks to look at them, including yourselves. Because I think it's a county by county by county review. The second thing we got to make sure we do with the tax code is simplify it. It's got to be simplified. Personally, I do my taxes, it's a nightmare. And I'm just a regular citizen. I cannot stand doing my taxes. So the fair tax is a good idea. I'm not saying that's the only option. But simplification of the tax code is absolutely critical, because then we'll have greater controls and know what's going on.
In closing statements, we'll start with you.
Well, thank y'all again for coming out tonight. I love living in this area. I wasn't born and raised here in Bowman, but I got here as fast as I could. I choose to live here. I choose to raise my son in this area because it's a beautiful community. There's not many areas where you can put your son in his little red wagon and walk to the grocery store and load up with groceries and come back. And that's just a small town feel, of our rural communities. And that's why I've had such a passion to fight for my community. And it's the same way here in all our communities in Oglethorpe. We have a great quality of life that we need to fight for, but we also need to make sure we find ways to add some growth. There's plenty of opportunities in our communities, in our rural areas, to add some growth and not affect our quality of life. We need to make sure we do have some growth so we can spread that tax base out. The real answer is we can't just lower taxes, because the best way to do it is to bring more people to the community, bring more businesses. If you have more business and more people here, that tax base gets spread out, and that's what's going to lower your taxes. So if we get some growth in here, that's what's the most important thing here. So that's what I'm fighting for. That's what I've been fighting for in Bowman. And I've heard over and over again going through Oglethorpe County here that y'all have felt slighted. Y'all felt like you haven't had a representative. Someone told me the other day the last person they felt and listened to was Charlie Norwood, and that was a long time ago. And that's going to change. As mayor, I always said I was a glorified cheerleader. I was the biggest advocate of my city. I screamed to the hilltops that Bowling was the greatest place to be, and I loved it, and I fought over and over for it. And that's what y'all need here in Oglethorpe County. And I've been doing it, and I'm ready to be your biggest cheerleader and fight for y'all in Atlanta. So thank y'all for coming out. Please look up my website, GiggensForSenate.com or Facebook.com/Pete Giggins for GA. I just put a big interview I did on there, about 30 minutes long. If y'all are interested in me, speaking on some more of the issues, but I'd love to get you to know y'all some more, and I'd love to represent y'all in Atlanta. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Well, in closing, it is time that we really consider fresh ideas and new leadership. And that's where I want to use my experience to help. Because I'm a common sense leader. I like to get to the bottom of problems, and I don't like to how can I put it? I want things to be simple. So I know a lot of questions to ask, and I like to run to others. I'm not after the title. I'm after the job. And it is a job, because this is not like a house seat where you can work for the 3 months. This is an all-year, everyday job. Because as I understand it, everyone wants attention. They need attention, and they need to be heard. Now, I will tell you, I've already told you I would host weekly meetings, and I will. And I will make sure that I do, and I will stick to that. And I will leave you with, they say that the definition of insanity is the repetition of an action with expectations of a different outcome. We've been blessed to be represented by Senator Bill Jackson in many different capacities for many years, and I'm truly humbled for his service. But now is a turning point in District 24. So do we keep sending up the same real politicians with the same ideas, with the same outcomes, or do we send someone to Atlanta that's going to represent you with new ideas and fresh outcomes? So I would like to be the voice, and I hope you consent me. My name is Patricia Goodwin, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 24th, and vote early, if not often, and vote on May 24th. And check out my website, www.patgoodwin.com, and I also have a Facebook page, and you can always reach me, and I'm here to talk. So, thank you.
And Greg Grabowski.
Thank you all for listening to us tonight. The best part that I found in campaigning is getting a chance to talk to folks. That's really important. As mentioned before, the life's a learning process. My daughter's 82 years old, and I believe we have a long time to go show this learning. So when I have an opportunity to talk with you, it's a fantastic experience. Win or lose. I've learned a lot from this campaign, and I've learned a lot from my military service. What I want to stress to you is I'm a man of my word. I've always been a man of my word. And my number one goal is to make sure that you're properly represented and the deepest levels of protecting your freedom, your liberty, your ability to make a decision for your own council. It really boils down to simplifying how we do business in the state of Georgia, empowering the counties to make their own decisions. I've run into this problem when I ran for the commission last year. I've learned a lot about what the commissions can do versus what the Board of Education can do, what the state does. I found out a lot of things go up to the state. A lot of folks didn't realize that. Most citizens don't realize that the state actually controls a lot of what can happen in a county. And I don't think that's necessarily the best solution. That's going to require new legislation to change some of those things. And so that's what I'm really focused on, is trying to empower the counties. I don't think we can grow as counties and get new business in counties without the counties fighting for that themselves. So that's what I'm all about. I hope we'll vote for Grabowski on May 24th or sooner. And I look forward to their decision. Thank you all very much.
Full disclosure, I do not live in Senate District 24, so I can say this objectively. I hope that you will not vote for any candidate who didn't show up here tonight.
That's right.
Well, respect the ones who did.
That's right.
Back over to our chairman.
I want to thank all of y'all for coming, all the candidates for coming for this final debate, for forum. I think it was very helpful for all of us to hear from these three races. And so let's give them another hand. Each of y'all did a great job, I have to say. And I also have got to say that Tim Bryant is the best moderator I've ever. agreed to come do these two debates for us. And so I personally thank you. You do a wonderful job.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
No, we really appreciate it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?